Hi guys, today we're going to talk about our 6.4, the percent equation notes. Our I can statement. I can use the percent equation to find parts, wholes, and percents and solve real life problems. To represent A is P percent of W, you are going to use an equation that looks like A equals P times W. So the is in our word statement up here, our word sentence, okay, is the equal sign. So it's A equals or is P percent, that's our P, of is going to be our multiplication symbol, and then of W, okay. When we write our percent, we want to put our percent in fraction form. So really, instead of just one number, you're going to have two. So it could be something like 17 out of 100. Or you can put it in decimal form. If you put it in decimal form, you're only going to have one number. So if we use our 17 out of 100, we would put in 0.17, I'm sorry. Our part equals percent times whole. So this is a nice way to remember it down here. Part equals percent times whole. And really, I like this way. Is equals percent times of. Okay, so our is our portion, our percent times our whole amount, our of amount. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples over here. Our first one, let's give, I'm going to write an example down. So we have, let's say 15 equals 50% of 30, right? Or I can put my little dot in there instead of our multiplication symbol. Okay, so we have our is, we have our percent written as a decimal, and then our 30 is going to be our of, or our portion of it. Or I'm sorry, our whole instead of the portion. Okay, so let's look at our first example. This one we're finding a part of a number. So we have what number is. Remember, it's is equals percent times of. So our part equals percent times whole. So our is our unknown. We're finding our part equals our percent. So 0.24 times 50. Okay, so I'm going to take 0.24 times 50. You can type that into your calculator and you're going to get your X value, or your A if you used our letters that we used up here. Okay, so you could use A equals 12. So 12 is 24% of the number 50. Okay, so let's look at number 2. 9.5 is what percent of 25? So I have my is. Remember, we have is equals percent times of, or part equals percent times whole. So we have 9.5 is what percent is my unknown, and then my of is 25. So in order to get the X all by itself, right now I just have an equation here. So I'm going to divide by 25 on both sides. So I'm going to do 9.5 divided by 25. The right side cancels out. And that gives me X equals 0.38. But this time it says percent. I don't want just the 0.38, so I need to turn that into a percent. So I'm going to shift it over 3 times, or twice, I'm sorry. And I'm going to get 38%. Okay, so let's look at our third example. It says 39 is 52% of what number? So we know this is our portion. The 39 is the portion. Remember, our is equals percent times of. Okay, this equals our percent. So I'm going to turn that percent into our decimal times our unknown. So just like I did in example 2, I'm going to divide. But this time I want to make sure I divide by 0.52 because that's what I have above. So I'm going to divide by 0.52 on both sides. And this time I'm going to get 75 equals my x. And that's okay because when I'm dividing, usually we get a smaller number. However, we divided by a decimal. So when we divide by a decimal, it's actually going to make that number larger in most cases. I think it actually is any case where you have that decimal. Okay, so our x is going to be 75. So go ahead and pause the video. We have 6 try on your owns. Hopefully you have a little bit more space than I do from example 5 and 6. Okay, let's look at example 4, real life application. We are going to find the percent of sales tax on food total. Okay, so over here says we have $27.50 for food. Our tax is $165. The total between the two is $29.15. So I want to find the percent that this tax is. So I know the amount that the tax is, that's the portion. So that is my part, right? So we have part equals percent times whole. So our part is going to be the $1.65. The percent, because it says find the percent. The percent is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to put X there. The whole amount was $27.50. So multiply those. So the X times the $27.50. But now, because it's an equation, I need to undo that. So I'm going to divide by $27.50 on both sides. And I end up with X equals 0.06. So it says percent again. So I want to turn this into a percent, which means my X equals 6% because I shift over my decimal twice or multiply it by 100 to get my percent. Okay, so B, it says find the amount of a 16% tip on the food total. So if my food total, okay, I'm looking for my portion. That's my X. My part. My percent is 16%. I'm going to turn that into a decimal, so 0.16, times the whole amount of the food, which was $27.50. When I multiply 0.16 times $27.50, because those are next to each other in the equation, I get X equals $4.40. So it would be $4.40 as a tip for a 16% tip on the food. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and try number 7 on your own.